Here I am, bigSHow theGod. What I was doing today was I've had a bit of a mixed day, so I thought I'd do a quick podcast just to sort of soundboard and record kind of what I do in a general episode when I'm like this, when I mix things up, have a look around, look at how I can review things, and generally this is spurred on by some other information I've had recently, or maybe from several bits of new information that I've learned over a fortnight, a month, and trying to blend in what I've currently learnt, or new ways of framing what I already know, and blending them into what I currently do. I guess because I have a bit of a process and a structure already, what I like to do is how I can tweak the structure, or how I can validate, how I can confirm, how I can see any blind spots, how I can rejig the process based on the new knowledge I have. So if I learn something, I don't sort of just react straight away, and a bit like ditching what I already do. I kind of try and blend it into the structure that I've already got running. And remember, it's generally proven, and it works. If it's a working model that already works to a level, how will that be enough to get me to the next level? And so delving into what I already do and what I already know, and then what I've learnt and re-looking at it from another perspective of myself with this new knowledge. And it sometimes it's framed a different way, or it's worded a different way, but that reinvigorates looking at what I currently do already, and then going, okay, it might be that I'm running or I'm training a certain way, to say, well, let's reinvigorate that with some new knowledge. Maybe I'll add some of that into it. So how does that look? And then blend that in. And then it needs time to process through. And there's a lot of whys and hows, and then review that in a similar way to other pillars in my life, and how that's impacted the other pillars. So happens a lot in relationships. How in a relationship, if I learn more or I understand more about that person, how that can shift and influence what I project to happen in the next stages. So I've got I'll put up my notes board here, and I was just watching a bit of Star Talk. Quite smart, this dude, very smart. And so let's frame this up to today's one. That was the last thing I did. It was a level up progress. Let's go. What did I title this? Forecasting. It's kind of like forecasting. Yeah. Forecasting and we'll put a preference there from knowledge. We'll call it new knowledge. I'll leave it at forecasting from new knowledge. So let's start with that. And so an example of that may be having a discussion with someone and finding out more about their goals. And do their goals affect me? It can be like my parents may have shared with me something about their plans or future or something, and that could influence, and then that could involve me. So that's new knowledge, right? And so I would take that new knowledge, grasp it, and then mold it into the fabric of my plans, and then get more confirmation of it, or not, depending on the information. So it could be as simple as being asked to be an executor on a will or on a deed of trusts. Saying yes to that has not consequences, but it impacts what I'm doing each day, or there'll be a chunk of time that's going to impact on that, and then there's the whys and the reasons to go down that road, right? So before I commit to that, I can establish, understand, and then progress my way through to see whether I'm going to or not, as opposed to just yes or just no. So what does it actually mean? And a lot of it's, you say, well, it's not much, but I'm not that. I think we can make it what we make it. So to some people it's different. So that's that kind of example. Another one can be reviewing investments. Let's say that. Okay, let's use that one then as a bit more generic. So you're forecasting from new knowledge, and then you might go, okay, so let's say you have some investments, reviewing investments. In my opinion, these are constantly reviewed, so reviewing investments. So as a snapshot, what's something I have a mutual fund account, right? So I review it. I review the mutual funds. So let's do that. So let's say this mutual fund, I reviewed it, so I've got an amount in it today. So you got current value, right? So you understand the current value. Then you go 12 months ago. So if you review, and then you can break it down to let's say how much you contributed. That equals, etc., contributed, etc. Then you can see outcome. Well, actually, we'll call that gains. Let's call that growth / return. for 12 months, right? And so that's, I mean, on the app and that and the graph, I can do that summary really quick. I can see what I put in, what it was, what I put in, what we currently have, what we have today, and then that minus that plus that equals your growth return. So true story, I guess. I got a growth return of approximately 10%. It's actually almost bang on. But 12, there's a 12-month growth. Actually higher, it's 12%. It's 12% growth. So the growth return on the money I've got in there, I got 12% over 12 months. That's pretty damn good, right? So what I do is I go, well, that validates carrying on and even can influence, do I put more into it? Or it motivates me to at least stay the same. I mean, or if I rinse and repeat that act, I'm going to assume, which isn't great in forecasting, but we can monitor the next 12 months and go, okay, rinse and repeat that. It's going to go from, 100,000 to pretty quickly, well, there's 10 grand, and if it's 10%, there's 10 grand without any incremental additions, right? So if we got 200 grand, there's 20 grand in growth return. So let's say growth return. So if I review and I forecast, so the new knowledge I've got was reading the current information and taking that data spread. Some knowledge I may have had was what the market may or may not do. So it's pretty all over the place. But if we average it out on my knowledge here of going, well, 2 or 3 for the last couple of years, I've got that 10%. So I don't think it's unreasonable to forecast 10% again. And I can see month by month how it goes. So based on that, we can have let's have a look at a budget sheet formula. This here is my digital board, my digital motivation board, which I update very regularly, sporadically. I have my 3-year goals on here, daily goals. I have images that motivate me. Yeah, but if we quickly go to forecasts, and we stick to the investment thing of today, so we see here I've tracked what it was. So that's how much we've got in it today and what we had in December 2021, right? And specifically this one. So I've tracked that we've made on growth returns 11% from 12 months ago, minus the contributions, 11%. And so that's a factual statement. This has done the same, so that's nice. So we're sitting at that. So I can forecast for 2023. So if we fast forward to December, my expectations like the new 10% issue, I've forecasted it to be lower than that. I'll just put in the straight numbers. So that there could be as much as 15 grand more. You know, I'd expect that to be, you know, it's if I get 10%, it's 220 without doing anything. You know, so that could be as much as 240. So I'm still conservative when I do my calculations, right? I go actuals, and then you adjust them for what the market actually does. If I predict the market on this 10% of last year's, I think that's setting you up for a bit of failure. So I always under set up so that these numbers are more well, you know, there's no saying that this could drop. You know, that's an investment, it's not a thing. Same with my house costs. My house value could drop from what it is today. I don't know. It can, you know, that can happen all the time. So I stick with real numbers, and I'm not anticipating dropping. Breaking even is kind of where I stick to forecast numbers, but I still have to have a logical idea that there's going to be growth and factor in some growth. And so 10% doesn't seem unreasonable at the knowledge I have right now. So 10% growth, which I haven't pushed into these numbers yet. And that's the point of having historic history numbers that are okay. I go through this process all the time. I've said it. Okay, here's my break even, here's my contribution, this is how much we could have. Worst case scenario, we can have this. Well, it's not even a worst case, it could be less if all sorts of things happen in this world, right? But I can't live on the buts too much, but I can't live on everything going like that also, as well. So anyway, that's the kind of simplistic system I have. Not too complicated. I consider it very low risk. Probably the most low risk system. But if it fruitions out, where in 12 months, instead of this being that, it's another 10 to 15 grand higher, we're almost at 250,000 in there, when, you know, a year ago, which is today, we're at 200. So to add 50k, if you said you could add 50k to this in a 12-month period and only be contributing 20k, maybe 30k max, and it's going to go as much as 50 to 60, or 50 to 55 based on 10%. Could be more, could be, you know, how long's a piece of string? But the point is, I would argue that's a good return. It's like a 25% increase, and I've contributed some of that, but that's just in that period. Go to 250, you know, that's 12 months from now. Ain't much. And then you keep doing that. That's that compound interest kind of concept, right? Which is where I've been, you know. So it was only a couple of years ago I was at 10,000, 20,000, you know. So I'm, and my rationale with that was most of our money was going into this. The mortgage thing. So I had the mortgage thing and I built up some cash in here to throw at that to reduce that. Whereas now I'm directing it there and letting that play out. So I'm in two minds still, to keep that pushing money there from here, push more to here, or push that to here. It's actually to there. Push the debt down, because getting rid of debt is kind of key, because that'll keep growing, that'll keep things. You could argue you push this down, and then you can throw this number here at that. So the logic is, whatever you throw at the mortgage, you get to throw at that. And so imagine throwing that at that over this period of time, because you paid this off quicker. So instead of pushing the money, this money's going to here, push all of it to here, as opposed to breaking it. So we're pushing that to there, right, and then we're pushing some of this, so this is minus this contribution, so that to here. So the argument is to keep doing that and keep doing it the way I'm doing it, or throw everything at this to get that down to, say, 3 years instead of 7. So in 3 years have this, throw everything, keep this going up the way it is, but pay this off, and that way we get to throw all of that wherever, to be honest. It can go in here, it can go in here, but then we throw all that at that. Right, and that way all that goes to that. 10 months of that, that's 40k, correct? No, that's 4,000. Yeah, it's monthly. So a year, you're doing 50k a year into a year. So like I'm saying, currently I'm doing 50k, that just doubled it to 100k or 50k contributions, which means the following year from that. So in 3 short years of staying the same but having none of this, but using this that services this, and using this to go to that, that's an extra 150k in 3 years, earning 15k a year if it's 10% after that. You with me? So it multiplies very fast. So that's the point, and that's what I'm doing here, is to emotionally and really understand the decisions I'm making every day. Really understand them, get more knowledgeable. Just doing that, I can appreciate the numbers, I can understand them more, so I'm more likely to get up tomorrow and do them and carry it out and give my reasons why I do that, why I chose not to buy that, why I chose to do this instead. I mean, I've built in some factors to not get caught up in 5 years from now. But it brings me to present day to make my decisions today. Great. It's a great decision now. I'm very comfortable with the decisions I make. Very comfortable. In fact, I'm very knowledgeable on them. I know that spending $1,000 on something, I know the impact that's going to have very, very clearly. And so I make that decision to spend $1,000 on whatever it may be. Without any anxiety, without any... I still think about it, but it's reduced from anxiety to just a meaningful decision. From saying, okay, I'm going to go on that trip, going on it, and we're going 100%. We're going. You know, we're enjoying every moment. We're gonna be present when we go. We're gonna engage in whatever's in the place we're going to, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's strangers, whether it's just an experience. I get engaged in the whole thing. I'm still conscious of the financial part of it, but nowhere near the same degree of what's going to happen, who's going to do what, how am I going to do that. Doesn't cross my mind at all. What crosses my mind is, do I value this? Do I value this that I'm doing now? And then what gets more interesting is, do the people around me value this? And sometimes that's the reason I'm doing it. I may not even be that fussed about the cruise. Not that fussed. But if the wife's into it and enjoying that, and the friends we make and conversations we have from it, okay, it's good enough. You know, at the number that we've gone in with it for. Because on these numbers I've projected, on base break-evens, we're well up in all these areas. And it's not having a wasteful mindset, it's having a mindset of what I think is just reality. I'm just being realistic. And then I carve out the things that I enjoy. You know, when I purchase something here, whether someone else agrees with it or not makes absolutely no difference. No difference whatsoever. If it matters to me, that's what I question. Now, if it's mattering to me because it matters to somebody else, okay, then that's on me. And I notice myself when friends come over and they've purchased something or they've changed how they've done it, I can now perspectivize it just differently. Before I'd have in my opinion, quite a judgmental look at the situation and say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do it this way? What is this better? That way? I do that to myself. I do it to myself all day long. And I didn't know any other way to do it. Why would I? Whereas, you see, what starts happening here as I blend in the knowledge, I do know that budgeting matters. It's transformed my life in that perspective, but it transformed everything else with it. You know, if you do one thing on it, there's a problem, in my opinion. You know, I can't, no point dying with it all. So turning into a hoarder doesn't make any sense. So having enough to have enough makes sense. But I don't need enough to live to 3,000 years old. Right? I'm not planning that amount, am I? But then I'm not planning on this for the next 3 years to be it. I mean, that might be irresponsible too. So where's the line? I think the line is just based on, well, what I'm into, what I do, what I get for it, how much I want to push towards it. In doing these types of exercises of just clarifying, re-understanding, there are events that are going to happen to me tomorrow or the next day that I'm not going to have that control over. So then I have to adapt. I have to adapt the numbers to that for that forecast of that period of time until I change something else. Correct? So that's the process I go through regularly. I'm regularly tuning, fine-tuning, looking at those things. I could always do more. Even thought to myself, things like, why don't I get another job that I really enjoy? Get another income stream that way. And I go, well, if rather than planning it, it would just happen. But then you need to be focused on that. Yeah, maybe. I think things like that are going to happen regardless. So I think it's healthy to keep pushing those thoughts and keep logging them and disrupting myself to look into them. And in a way, that's another level of forecasting. So from this, you get the what ifs, you get the what else, what more, within the same wheelhouse. I mean, especially if I was doing the numbers and I'm going, well, these numbers are fucking small. That's healthy too. It feels horrible, I guess, if we chop our income in half and I do the numbers. So it's harder because it's less than the number I had now. But it's a new number. But those are difficult. I guess that's part of the process of trying to blend in, being more emotionally engaged with what's going on all the time. Because I'd use the same process if the numbers were smaller. Or an event happens this afternoon where that's chopped in half. Then use the same process. Was it in my control, out of my control? That's the only system I have for moving on. Was there a blind spot there? Should I have known? Could I have known? If the answer is no very quickly, then the answer is no until otherwise proven. Now, if I just avoided something that I knew, then that's different. Correct? So that's where your authenticity comes in, and where just logical reasoning. I can't earn this sort of money till I die, I wouldn't thought. So there's a period there where the income's going to be different, unless I'm smart enough to have income streams that are outside of my earning on a weekly basis. That's what the investments are doing then, aren't they? Correct. That investment apparently is going to get me 20, 30, 40, depending on when I stop contributing. If it's at $1 million potentially, and according to my forecasts, 5, 6, 7 years, well, if that's getting 10%, that works out to be 100,000 on the million. If I'm debt free and well, it's 100,000 more than I would have got if I pushed it somewhere else. But that's an assumption that I'm getting 10%. Or half that, 50,000. Well, it's still 50,000 without touching the capital, right? So I'd argue that makes sense to push it to that, as opposed to me wandering around with whatever else could or woulda, shoulda. You know. So that makes it a lot more apparent for me anyway, because I've struggled to invest. Like I said, these numbers, I haven't done it my whole life until probably, well, I put in the superannuation schemes and all that, and I've maxed those out over my life, which has worked out pretty good. I guess that's why I like that, but still nothing to the level of what I could have done, and that I'll take ownership for that, which is why I guess I'm big on sharing this type of information with people that I value, or anybody, to be honest. But I would encourage this type of information to go for them to intrinsically get it. I think it's hugely beneficial with how humans live in society now. That's all I think. I think most of the things are pretty simple. If you enjoy what you're doing most of the time, you're winning. The thing is, are you getting paid reasonable for what you enjoy? I think that matters. If the answer is no, you go enjoy something else. Because there's lots of things we can enjoy. People are finding an enjoyment in the other things that I'm not finding enjoyment in. And then from that argument would be what you get, what you do with it. You know, it's a bit like a diet. You can out eat any workout, any gym exercises, or any running, or you can out eat that. Trust me, I did. So you can out eat any of it, the same as you can outspend what you earn. So what you get, if I was getting $500,000 a year, you go, fucking hell, that doesn't, I can spend that in a year. I can spend more than that in a year. Put your mind to it. So you can outspend what you earn. You can out eat what you move. It may not show straight away, but you can do it. So, you know, discipline and ownership and accountability and responsibility are never not necessary. I've never heard someone, well, I'll ask my future self this. If my future self regrets me investing $250,000 into a mutual fund, getting 10%, and if it ends up planning out, if he's going to regret that, really? My future self regrets, and my future self would have been happier, or be better off with a fucking car out there that's worth 10 times, 10x what it is now. A shinier car, different colour fucking car, a bigger house, a fucking bigger boat or a boat or shit like that. You're telling me that, oh man, my future self's going to mate, that was such a good decision. This car, this 2022 model car that is now 5 years old, it was fucking really good idea that you sunk 60 grand into it, 80 grand into it, never to be seen again, as opposed to stay in the same $20,000 car you got now, and that 60, 80, 100 grand, whatever, is in there. Right? It's in there. That's just that decision, let alone the payment system. You know, is my future self going to be upset that I didn't start smoking? Man, you should have started smoking a lot earlier. Don't hear that too often. Oh man, I wish you hadn't have saved any of that money. Really? Who says that? You might say, oh yeah, but we could have gone to Disneyland. Could have gone to Disneyland, but instead I saved 30 grand. Even that, my future self might say, no, I understood. Even that. Okay, yeah, but what about my kids at the time? You know, I think if you got the 30 grand and you've got another 100 grand in investments, different conversation. You hear me? The conversations are different when your portfolio of stuff is this. And we went for a trip here, but it didn't cripple us. Wasn't that or that. There's a difference between that and that. That and that. That makes more sense, right? That and that. Now if we're going one of the two, 30 grand for a trip over here, or 30 grand to get out of debt. And then the trip's fucking taking the back door. Trips I can go on tomorrow. Even when you say that, to your future self, then you can go on one now. Unless you did. If you did, well then you did. Still not going to suggest that was not smart. Humans have gone without trips forever. So always question. It's easy to sit here and go, oh, I regret not going on that. Well, what was the situation you're in? I think it's different. If you've got $10 million there and you're not going on a trip with your mates or with your children, a different argument and a different statement and a different circumstance you go. But if your head's not there, I'd say that guy needed some more reviewing. Needed to fucking understand a little bit more about what he was doing. So that never goes away. That self-awareness, that self-evaluation, regardless of where you're at. Whether you're homeless or whether you've got 10 homes. Now the guy had 10 homes and he's going on 10 trips and he's seeing his kids fucking weekly and there's things monthly. I'd argue. Or the same guy that's got a home now gets a home and then he's building it up. What's the difference? The guy shouldn't really go on a trip either. Getting a home would be a smart option. To him it's not. You know, we can talk opportunities and all that sort of stuff, but where your mental state is matters. Probably matters the most. My mental state matters the most, and this helps me with my mental state. It validates, it refreshes, it reviews, it remotivates, it energizes me getting up tomorrow and I'm going to go push some weights around, or I'm going to row in a rower, or I'm going to run up some fucking hill. It reinvigorates that. Why? We're talking finances, because that level of anxiety has now opened up room for expansion, for other thoughts, for more creative ideas, which are more on top of what I've already got instead of this shot in the dark kind of concept. So yeah, I think there's more for me to push through, which I'm looking forward to getting to. It's probably a good topic for another day. How I get myself working towards some of those things. But that was a reasonable overview of stuff I think of.